The regular meeting of the Ethical Practices Board for March 15, 2022 will now begin.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the regular meeting of the Ethical Practices Board for March 15th, 2022. I am Walter Bauck and I am the chair of this board. As we begin, I will note for the record that this meeting has remote participation by members and city staff as authorized under Minnesota statutes section 13D.021 due to the declared local public health emergency. The city will be recording and posting this meeting to the city's website and YouTube channel as a means of increasing public access and transparency. This meeting is public and subject to the Minnesota Open Meeting Law. As a reminder, I would like to request that all members mute their microphones when not speaking. At this time, I will ask the clerk to call the roll so that we can verify a quorum for this meeting.
Board Member Doobie.
Present.
Board Member Friedman. Chair Bauck.
Present.
There are 3 members present.
Let the record reflect that we have a quorum. With that, we will proceed to our agenda, a copy of which is posted for public access to the city's legislative information management system, which is available at lims.minneapolismn.gov. May I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
I so move.
Do I have a second? All right, hearing no say, I will second the motion. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Board Member Doobie.
I guess I vote affirmatively.
Board Member Friedman. Board Member Friedman. Chair Bauck.
Aye.
There are 2 ayes.
That motion carries and the agenda is adopted. Our first item of business is acceptance of the minutes from the 2 meetings held on January 25th and the meetings of February 8th and February 11th of 2022. May I have a motion to accept those minutes?
I so move.
Motion by Member Doobie. Do I have a second? I will second the motion. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Board Member Doobie.
I abstain.
Chair Bauck.
Aye.
There is 1 aye.
Is Member Friedman, have we lost him?
I see him still in the meeting and his microphone is on our end. He could be muted. His phone could be muted and we can't hear him.
Member Friedman, if you are muted, would you hit *6, please? And let us know that you're present. Well, in any event, that motion carries and those minutes are accepted. With that, we'll proceed to the election of a vice chair. I'll open the floor to nominations for the position of vice chair.
I nominate myself.
All right. Member Friedman? Are there any further nominations? If not, I will close the floor to nominations and ask that the clerk call the roll on the nomination of Member Doobie as Vice Chair.
Board Member Doobie,
As a point of parliamentary procedure, am I able to vote on this vote?
Absolutely.
Okay, well, I will vote affirmative.
Board Member Friedman, Chair Bauk.
Aye.
There are 2 ayes.
That carries, that motion carries, and Member Doobie is elected as Vice Chair. We have one item under unfinished business, ethics complaint 2021-53. It's a motion to dismiss. Ms. Trammell?
Thank you, Chair Bauk. Ethics complaint 2021-53 was before the board in November 2021, at which time the board issued an order finding probable cause and had instructed me to offer a cure to the complaint. And the subject of that complaint did so meet all the requirements of a cure, and because of that, I am now bringing forward the motion to dismiss the complaint.
Thank you, Ms. Trammell. Just as a, for the record, it looks like Board Member Friedman has left the call, left the meeting. We still have the presence of a quorum, however. Do we have a motion to dismiss ethics complaint 2021-53? I will make that motion since I was on the board at the time. Do we have a second?
I will second.
Okay. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Board Member Doobie,
I abstain.
Chair Bauk.
Aye.
There is 1 aye.
That motion carries, and the ethics complaint number 2021-53 is dismissed. With that, we'll proceed to our new business items. First under new business is approving the 2022 work plan. Ms. Trammell.
Thank you, Chair Bauk. The 2022 work plan is an item normally adopted by the board at the January meeting, but because we knew that the board members were going to be changing, the 2022 work plan was continued, or wasn't, if it was even on the agenda in January, it was continued to this meeting of today. And so the 2022 work plan has a number of different components relating to ethics education, continued ethics code review, and the structure of the board itself, and then code interpretation through policy recommendations, ethics inquiries, ethics complaints, the ethics report line, and the general promotion of an ethical culture in the city of Minneapolis. All of the items on the work plan are predicated on the availability of city staff to complete the tasks that require staff involvement. But I would, it is staff's recommendation that you adopt this 2022 work plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Trammell. Are there any questions or discussion? Member Doobie?
I have none.
Okay. That being the case, I'll ask for a motion to approve the 2022 work plan.
And I will so move.
I will second the motion. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Board Member Doobie,
Aye.
Friedman, Chair Bauk.
Aye.
There are 2 ayes.
That motion carries, and the 2022 work plan is approved. Our next item is the annual consideration of amendments to the Ethical Practices Board bylaws and rules of procedure. Again, we'll turn to Ms. Trammell.
Thank you, Chair Bauk. The Bylaws and rules of procedure for the Ethical Practices Board must be reviewed annually as required by Rule 10.1. Staff is proposing the following changes to the bylaws. First change being the removal of the sentence calling for the automatic transition of vice chair to chair in Rule 2.2. Adding an additional reason in Rule 7.2 and 7.6 to permit the ethics officer's dismissal of a complaint that when such complaint does not support a material violation of the ethics code. Amending Rule 7.2 to conform it to the changes that were previously adopted in July of 2020 to Rule 7.6. Some of the language was missed there. And the last red line change is making a housekeeping clerical changes to Rules 8.2, 9.1, and 9.2. These proposed changes are noted in the redlined bylaws that are currently attached to the agenda. I am also proposing a change to Rule 4.1. I learned yesterday that the board is possibly returning to in-person meetings as early as May. Historically, the board has met in room 321 of City Hall. I believe Chair Bauk will agree with me that room 321 is not an ideal meeting room. I have been informed that it is likely that the board will not be meeting in room 321 when we return to in-person meetings, but will instead be assigned to a meeting room in the city's new building. Because of the potential move, I propose striking of the second sentence of Rule 4.1, which currently reads, "The meetings shall be held in room 321 of City Hall unless a different location of said meeting is desired." Pursuant to Rule 10.1, these amendments today may only be adopted with unanimous consent at today's meeting. Absent unanimous consent, the action today would be an introduction of the amendments and a referral of the matter to the May meeting for potential adoption of the amendments at that time. I can now stand for any questions you may have.
I have a question. That's all right. Regarding
Absolutely, go ahead.
with Rule 4.1, if I'm reading this correctly, the rule already allows us to meet in a different location?
It does, but we're recommending just removal of it altogether since we don't know where we will be routinely meeting.
Okay, and so right now we don't know that we'd be going back to 321. It's up in the air.
It is correct, although I've been informed that the likelihood is that we will not.
And so if we do strike this one sentence, we won't, by the rules, we won't have a designated place to meet. So would that require, oh, I'm sorry.
You go ahead, sir.
Would that require an additional amendment once we do have a room, or it would just be left not designated going in the future?
Member Doobie, the open meeting law requires that when we post agendas, we post where the meeting will be held. And so, you know, we've been able to meet all this time remotely, even though room 321 is in the bylaws. It's just something that's not necessary for the bylaws. And so I'm recommending we just take it out, and then we don't have to, you know, continue to check for its accuracy.
Okay, thank you.
And Ms. Trammell, given that Member Friedman may or may not be present, and it looks like he may not be, since the amendments need to be adopted by unanimous consent, it looks like we're going to have to move these, push this to the May meeting. Is that a correct interpretation?
Chair Bauk, I do think that that's the safer route to take, and nothing is urgent about these amendments. Some of the amendments we've discussed informally in previous meetings and outside of previous meetings. We've just been waiting for the annual review to get the changes. So I think the best course of action would be to just a motion to introduce and set on for a vote for May.
And that was the purpose of my question. So without objection, I just asked that the annual review and the vote on the and on any motion to adopt the proposed amendments to the bylaws and rules of procedure be moved to the May 2022 meeting.
If I may, Chair Bauk, I think we should ask for a motion to actually introduce the changes to the bylaws at this meeting.
Certainly. Appreciate that advice, Ms. Trammell. Well, given that, do we have a motion to introduce the proposed amendments to the bylaws and rules of procedure?
I so move.
And I will second that motion. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Board Member Doobie,
Aye.
Chair Bauk.
Aye.
There are 2 ayes.
That motion carries. The proposed amendments that are bylaws and rules of procedure are introduced, and we will next consider them at the May 2022 meeting of the Ethical Practices Board. The next item on today's agenda relates to preliminary consideration of allegations of violations of the Ethics Code by individuals subject to the authority of this board. Ms. Trammell will provide the board with a statement relating to the need to close the meeting to discuss the allegations.
Thank you, Chair Bauk. The next 3 items on today's agenda relate to preliminary consideration of allegations of violations of the Ethics Code by individuals subject to the authority of this board. The Minnesota Open Meeting Law requires the closure of a meeting for preliminary consideration of charges against an individual subject to the board's authority. Today, we have 3 complaints pending review pursuant to Rule 7.6. Those complaints are Ethics Code 2022-5, Ethics Code 2022-6, and Ethics Code 22-7. Upon a conclusion that discipline may be warranted, any subsequent meetings related to those complaints must be open.
Thank you, Ms. Trammell. At this time, I will entertain a motion to close the meeting as required by Minnesota Statute Section 13D.05, Subdivision 2, Parens B, to conduct the hearings on ethics complaints numbers 2022-5, 2022-6, and 2022-7. May I have a motion to close the meeting?
I so move.
I will second that motion. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Board Member Doobie,
Aye.
Board Member Friedman,
I just want it to be noted that I just had a problem as cell phone dead zone, and I apologize for missing previous portions of the meeting. And also that for reasons of unable to be in a private setting, I will not be participating in the closed session.
thank you. Chair Bauk,
Aye.
there are 3 ayes.
That motion carries, and the meeting is now closed. Will the members and the staff please go to the closed meeting link at this point?
Thank you.
The Ethical Practices Board for March 15, 2022 will now resume.
We are back in open session and we'll resume the regular meeting of the Ethical Practices Board of March 15th, 2022. Will the clerk please call the roll to verify the presence of a quorum?
I believe you're muted.
Thank you. Board Member Doobie,
Present.
Chair Bauk,
Present.
there are 2 members present.
We do have a quorum. May I have a motion for ethics complaint number 2022-5? 5.
I move to affirm the ethics officer's dismissal of said complaint pursuant to rules and bylaws of the Ethical Practices Board, section 7.6.
And this is Chair Bauk. I will second that motion. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Board Member Doobie,
Aye.
Chair Bauk.
Aye.
There are 2 ayes.
That motion passes. May I have a motion for ethics complaint 2022-6?
This is Board Member Doobie. I move to affirm the ethics officer's dismissal of said complaint pursuant to rules and bylaws of the Ethical Practices Board, section 7.6.
This is Chair Bauk. I second that motion. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Board Member Doobie,
Aye.
Chair Bauk.
Aye.
There are 2 ayes.
That motion passes. May I have a motion for ethics complaint 2022-7?
This is Member Doobie. I move to affirm the ethics officer's dismissal of said complaint pursuant to rules and bylaws of the Ethical Practices Board, section 7.6.
This is Chair Bauk. I second the motion. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Board Member Doobie,
Aye.
Chair Bauk.
Aye.
There are 2 ayes.
That motion passes as well. The next 3 items on the agenda are the reports of the ethics officer. Ms. Trammell will provide a summary of those reports.
Thank you, Chair Bauk. Yes, I am not muted. Okay, the first report is the Ethical Practices Board's Ethics Inquiry Report. I have a correction to that document. I note on the first page that it indicates that these are the inquiries since the July report. That is incorrect. These are the inquiries since the November report. And before they are received for filing, I would request that that amendment be made to indicate November report. I have 2 things that I would like to call out about this particular inquiry log. The first is that there are a number of entries that are highlighted in blue. Those are highlighted because I didn't want it to appear as if we had a lot of people calling with the same ongoing subject. These are all calls from one person. And so I want to just make that clear that all those highlighted in blue have to do with the inquiries that were being made over a period of time, in a sense, an ongoing, running, lengthy, very lengthy discussion with one person. The second thing that I want to call out has to do with the fact that there was one inquiry that had 2 subjects to it, and it may not have appeared like it should, in that we typically gray out with gray highlight a call that has 2 different components. So if you note on the second to last page of the log, on the date of February 11th of 2022, there was an entry that should have been grayed out. When I printed it on the city printer, the printer may have been out of ink, but it wasn't showing up as grayed out. So if it's not showing as grayed out, it is one caller with an outside employment question and then a complaint process question. And so those are recorded that way. That's how we show that there is more than one inquiry that's being made at the time someone makes a call. And that is all that I have. If someone has a question about a particular entry, I can discuss the entry.
Member Doobie, do you have any questions?
Regarding the individual highlighted in blue, appears this continued through the end of December. Are you able to speak about whether that is still ongoing? I don't see anything further.
Chair Bauk and Member Doobie, I have not heard from this individual since the last entry.
Okay, thank you.
These things tend to be a bit cyclical. And so I could have in the future another series of conversations, but I have not had anything since then.
Thank you. That's the only question I had.
And
Yeah.
Vice Chair Doobie, my apologies. I demoted you there for a minute. So
I've been demoting myself, so it will take another session to get used to it.
So any further questions or discussion?
So Chair Bauk, with your permission, I could move on to the complaint status report.
Yes, please.
There have been 17 complaints filed since the November report. Actually, 7 of those are from 2022. So there were 10 that were filed in November and December. For the total of 2021, there were 77 total for the year. Of those, 11 are still pending and 66 are closed, and that number was updated at the time that I did the preparation for this meeting. There, it's a higher number than in 2020, and if Chair Bauk recalls, we changed how we were recording complaints in 2021. Whereas previously, if a complaint came in and made an allegation about more than one person, it was counted as one complaint with subparts, and but now we're counting them as individual complaints. I don't think that that has added greatly to the increase in totals. 2021 had more complaints, in large part because it was an election year. We generally get more complaints in an election year. But I will have more statistics later that will be able to accurately compare 2021 to 2020 by doing some statistical analysis about complaints that had come in 2020 with multiple subjects alleged of having violated the code, so that we can do more comparison of apples to apples in a later year. For 2020 complaints and 2018 complaints, those are still being reported because they haven't yet closed. I haven't had an opportunity for this meeting to check in with those supervisors handling those complaints, but I will just indicate that they're usually still open because they involve employees and could involve grievance and or arbitration, and that's why they've been hanging out there. But I will follow up before the May meeting to see if we can close out, if they've closed and they just haven't informed me that these have now closed. And then if there are no questions there, I could move on to the other activity report.
Go ahead, Ms. Tremmel.
Thank you, Chair Bauk. So as to other activity, there's a fair amount of activity that is going on in the city that has involved both Matt and I. I posted an article for outside employment because outside employment declarations were due on January 31st. So there was an article that we posted to Minneapolis Matters, which is the electronic employee newsletter. Provided assistance to the elections department to implement the changes that were necessary for statements of economic interest legislation, and have been collaborating with them since to implement a process to assist them as they take over the collection of the necessary statement of economic interest forms. There are that's new in having the elections department handle these forms, and so new staff are involved, and staff previously handling the forms have left the city. I've attended meetings regarding records retention, regarding the a retention schedule specifically for various ethics board related documents and the scheduled destruction of records. And we will be proceeding with some scheduled destruction of ethics board and ethics officer records in the upcoming months. Working with the appointing panel as and city council to secure the appointments, for which we can indicate that Vice Chair Doobie is a result of that work in part, and along with Member Friedman. And then I am also continuing to work with the hotline vendor on various implementation issues and working with HR as well to get more use of the hotline and the case management system that comes with it, so that there's less individual managing on my part for calling and getting case updates. And so we are working through that, and I'm very pleased that they have a new director of investigations, and she has been very supportive of this work. So that's been very nice. We prepared an ethics education presentation for elected officials, and Matt did this with me, and we presented at 3 different sessions. And the elected official sessions were also included a briefing from the social media officer as to the do's and don'ts of social media and how that can end up with an ethics violation for them. So it was they were good sessions. We had one with a larger group and then 2 sessions that were quite small. The last one being just 3 council members, but they went well. Matt presented ethics education for new police cadets, I think twice during this time frame. And I reviewed and edited 2 departmental policies that had ethical implications, responded to numerous press inquiries over the last few months. And then we had a data request for ethical practices board, no probable cause decisions, probable cause decisions, and hearing decisions. And I pulled all of that data. That was a request dating back to 2010. So there was a lot of data to pull. And that is it for the other related activity. Any questions?
Vice Chair Doobie?
I have no questions.
Ms. Trammell, how well attended was the ethics education for the elected officials? Did everybody attend at one point or another?
Chair Bauk, ultimately everyone did attend. I don't know, Mr. Wilcox, do you recall how many were at that second session?
Yes, Chair Bauk, ethics officer. I believe there were 3 total at the second session, 2 council members and the president as well at that one. And that's my recollection. And I'd say the majority were at that first session.
That would be correct, Chair Bauk, because in addition to the council members, so there were 5 council members attending the second 2 sessions, so 2 and then 3, so that's 5. So that left 7 council members for the first session, and then 1. Oh, that's so. There were 8 at the first session, and 1 Board of Estimate and Taxation member. And the mayor was also there at the first session, but he had to leave. He had they had a daycare issue with kids being sent home for COVID or whatever. So his daughter wasn't able to hang out the whole time with us. And so he attended the second session as well. And then the third session had 2 council members and 1 Board of Estimate and Taxation member.
Okay. Well, that's
so
good.
We did get all members.
That's good to hear. Good. Good. Any other questions? Discussion? Okay.
How many? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Vice Chair Doobie.
I was just curious for Mr. Wilcox, how many police cadets did you present to, and how long was that presentation?
Vice Chair Doobie, Chair Bauk, thank you for that question. Unfortunately, I don't have the exact number. I can get you that number. I can get you the exact number. Ballpark, the first training was approximately 15. And then the second, I think, was a few fewer, about 12. And the ethics officer was with me at the second one. And I believe it was about a dozen cadets the second time. All total, I'd say close to 30. And each block of instruction was an hour and 30 minutes. So an hour and a half of ethics training each of the time. So 3 hours total.
Chair Bauk and Vice Chair Doobie, I concur with Mr. Wilcox. I was thinking about a dozen were there the day that I was there. And the standard length of an in-person ethics education course that we've designed for new employees is approximately an hour and a half. For the rest of the city, HR is no longer offering in-person ethics. And we've had many a discussion at this board about that as and we probably will again in the future, but the in-person ethics is only presented right now to police and fire when they have new cadets because they have asked. As far as the general population of the city, which HR arranges for the new employee orientation, we were cut from their training program. And so now the new employees take the same refresher training, which is a half-hour video that they watch and participate in. They have to answer questions and it does require interaction from them, but it's a half-hour long.
Thank you.
Anything further?
I do not have anything further.
Thank you, Ms. Trammell. Without objection and including the amendment that Ms. Trammell noted, I will direct the clerk to receive and file those reports. Next order of business is announcements. Do we have any?
Chair Bauk, I have one announcement, and that is I'd like to remind all members that after every monthly meeting, if they could send me an email containing the amount of time they've spent on Minneapolis Ethical Practices Board matters since the previous meeting, it would be much appreciated so that I can track the amount of time for inclusion in the next year's annual report. And Chair Bauk, if I could get your time for all of January as well, given the hearing that you had, I would appreciate that.
We'll be glad to do that. Anything else? I just want to welcome Vice Chair Doobie and Member Friedman as colleagues on the board. Look forward to working with both of you.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to working with you as well.
With that, we've completed all of the items on the agenda for this meeting. I will ask members and staff if there's any other matters to come before this meeting.
Chair Bauk, we have nothing further.
Okay. If not, and without objection, I'm declaring this meeting adjourned. Our next meeting will be May 17th, 2022. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you both.
Thank you.
And thank you, staff, Jackie and.
Absolutely. Couldn't do it without them.
Nope, I would not live without them.
Everyone take care.
Bye now.
Bye.